Right, so Wes Streeting is set to get the same take away his seat, deny him his place in Parliament kind of a treatment as his boss Starmer, is he? Well, I can't say I'm particularly surprised in his case. But you might have heard about an organisation going on in Keir Starmer's seat of Holborn and St Pancras, the OKISA organisation, who are working in order to stand an independent candidate against him in order to force him out of Parliament, deny him his path to number 10 at the next general election, and in doing so set the Labour Party on a different path than the Blairite return to Tory lightism that it is currently on, hopefully at any rate. And the reasons for this are, of course, numerous. You've only got to look at what Starmer has done, from the policies to the purging to his ceasefire position on Gaza. I've covered all of these in numerous videos. But now it seems the same treatment may await Starmer's odious health minion Wes Streeting in Ilford North, as recently an open event to select an independent candidate to stand against Streeting at the next election has been held, was very well attended, and given the demographic of his seat, along with the boundary changes that are affecting it, he should have every reason to be very worried about this development indeed. Right, so Wes Streeting's seat is being targeted by the very angry people of Ilford North, his constituents, very much in the same way Keir Starmer is in London, disgusted at the conduct of their MPs as these people are. Now I can talk about all manner of reasons why Streeting deserves this no end. His blatant Tory-like politics, his nastiness, frankly. He's a right-winger, he's ultra-loyal to Starmer, so getting dumped out of Parliament altogether would be entirely deserved in his case. But it's the more recent events in Gaza that have set many of his constituents against him to the point they're now getting organised over it. Now, you might remember a recent vote where Starmer whipped his MPs to vote against a ceasefire motion that had been brought by the SNP, the claim being it would damage Labour's chances in Scotland to support the Scottish National Party. Whereas the truth, because Starmer wouldn't know it if it slapped him in the face, but also because there's no way he could admit to it in this instance, was that his Israel lobby backers just wouldn't like it very much. You might remember that Starmer ended up watering this down in the face of significant rebellion to an abstention, to try and avoid resignations from his front bench over this. But he still ended up losing 10 shadow ministerial figures who had to vote for it, had to back it. One surprised a lot of people, being Jess Phillips, who is just as right-wing, just as loyal to Starmer as any on the front bench, including Streeting. But unless you can retain your seat, a front bench position at the end of the day is a moot one. She knew this, and she's got a huge Muslim vote in her seat. And so she acted to put her seat first, herself first. Let's not pretend it had anything to do with her constituents, but this is why she ended up resigning from the front bench. Now, Streeting is in a not too dissimilar position, despite loyally following the party line Starmer set. He's effectively daring his constituents to do something about him. Phillips has the 12th largest percentage of Muslims by constituency in the entire country. Her seat of Birmingham Yardley has a 35.4% of the local population identifying as Muslim. Streeting's seat of Ilford North is not too far behind that, with 23.6%, almost 1 in 4 people there identifying as being Muslim too. And as a demographic, as we've seen across the world, not just here in the UK, Muslims are incensed not only by the actions of Israel against other Muslims in Gaza, which is mostly Muslim but not exclusively, but they're also incensed by the support for Israel coming from Western nations and Western politicians, which frankly has bordered Islamophobic, if not been blatantly so. And this, of course, has triggered protests globally, and it's triggered protests notably in Ilford North. And there have been 2 that are worth mentioning outside of Streeting's constituency office, no less. And the first one saw 100 people show up and protest outside his front door. 2 weeks later, 600 people did, demanding their MP back a ceasefire or resign. Demanding that Labour back a ceasefire to absolutely no avail, and Streeting certainly hasn't changed his tune. The protests were so large and so notable, though, that people were coming together and they were having conversations there and they were getting organised. Alternative media also happened to cover it, so notable was it here, including myself, but also others such as Squawk Box and the Andrew Marr Show, and the Islam Channel sent a reporter to the scene as well at the time of the second protest. A 2-minute silence was held at that point for those that had died, some 16,000 people by 18th of November as it was, which of course has now risen to 24,000 people, 10,000 of whom are children. So now people are organising against streeting, and this is being spearheaded by the Redbridge Community Action Group, or RCAG, who were involved in organising the second bigger protest outside of Streeting's constituency office, highlighting to more people what Streeting was saying and doing on Gaza and Israel, or not, along with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and other ex-Labour members and trade unions involved as well. And this began with an event on the 8th of December at the Belgrave Community Centre in Ilford North, where more than 100 people attended, with speeches and talks about why they were there, why Streeting has to go, and opening applications for a parliamentary candidate to stand against Wes Streeting at the next general election. Applications for that, incidentally, are still open, but only until this coming Thursday, the 21st of December. So if you think this is something that would interest you, do get in touch with Redbridge Community Action Group ASAP. There were, in response to RCAG posting about this, numerous positive comments on social media to this news. Former Labour and Muslim activist Salma Ahmed said, "Get organising. Wes is a fraud and a liar in the pockets of private healthcare and pockets of Israeli lobby. Well done, Redbridge. Get him out, and never forget, never forgive." Andy Walker was a speaker at this event at Belgrave Community Centre, and he said, "I was honoured to be speaking at the meeting and mentioned I was part of a trade union group campaigning against a PFI school in 1998. Labour did not represent members back then, and it does not today when it does not back calls for a ceasefire in Gaza." Property Manager UK, a London-based property manager, he stepped in and said, "We've had no positive dealings with Wes. Seems to be inefficient and out of touch with his constituency. We've emailed him on several occasions regarding privacy concerns, the little Geary's estate, and nothing. The sooner this self-serving individual is voted out, the better." All very much seems to speak for itself, doesn't it? This is a guy who is a careerist, doesn't really do the day job of representing constituents, and boy has he got an awful lot of upset constituents with him right now. However, some very minor boundary changes coming in could have a very big impact, and not in Streeting's favour. You see, the Muslim population of Ilford North, as it is, might be about to increase further, hurting his re-election chances, and the knock-on effect that might well have with his very, very pro-Israel narratives. Ilford North in and of itself wouldn't need to change, as it already meets boundary requirements. However, some jigging around has been required to make sure that Ilford South meets the new population requirements, which is why the boundary changes are taking place. In order to do that, 2 wards that previously formed part of Ilford South are going to be added to Ilford North, and this is bad news for Streeting, because Ilford South has got an absolutely humongous Muslim population. In fact, by constituency, it has the 6th largest Muslim population in the country, and it is actually the most Muslim constituency in the whole Greater London area, with 43.7%, more than 2 in every 5 people identifying as Muslim. In addition to all of this, though, and in order to put together a more rounded opposition to Streeting, his private healthcare leanings are going to form the basis of the next plan of action, with the legendary NHS activist and director of the great NHS heist, even, Dr. Bob Gill, apparently getting involved now. Redbridge are bullish about winning this. They really do fancy their chances here. Streeting has made himself incredibly unpopular locally. Really, really unpopular. His majority is only a little over 5,000 as well, so a concerted, determined and organised force to take him down could quite conceivably do so. And I doubt there will be any shortage of former Labour members who would be happy to go out and campaign for a candidate, a good candidate, to see one of Starmer's most painfully loyal people fall at the next election, especially if it's a decent, determined independent who gets to be the person to do it. And equally, another determined independent can do the same to Keir Starmer, as I mentioned earlier. And if you want to know all about that, then you need to watch this video here, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.